thank you all for joining us tonight. We know that there are a lot of different ways you can be spending your Tuesday evenings, so thank you for signing on with us as we break down the Apply Texas application. We have a lot to look forward to tonight, so I will dive right in. So we have quite a few parents, students, a few families, and college counselors with us tonight, so thank you all for being here. Just some quick housekeeping. If you have any comments or replies to any of the questions that we may or may not ask in this webinar, you can put them in the chat box. Also, please don't use the raised hand feature. We won't be utilizing that tonight. If you have any questions for our speaker, you can put them in the Q&A and we will get to those at the end. If you have the latest version of Zoom, you can also turn on your closed captions and translations. I will also send out this recording tomorrow, so if you want to revisit any part of it, keep your eyes peeled on your email. And with that, I will let our host introduce herself.
Hi everyone, my name is Leebron. I'm from Houston and I'm based in Houston. I graduated from Rice University, where I then worked in the admission office after I graduated, both on the admission side and the marketing side.
Awesome, thank you, May. And I am Dorothy Manforti. I'm the Marketing and Special Products Manager here at Ingenious. And before we dive in, if this is your first time joining us, there are a few stops on our roadmap that we have to hit before we can just jump right in. And there are a few things about this roadmap that make us a little bit different in the education space. So the first stop will be our counseling team. So we have a counseling team of over 150 former admissions officers from top schools all across the country. So like May, they come from schools like Johns Hopkins, Harvard, Yale, UT Austin, just a wide variety of different schools. And our former admissions officers work on a 2-on-1 team with our graduate coaches who create personalized admission strategies for your students. So these lovely faces you see smiling back at you are graduates from these top universities. They know exactly what it takes to become a student there because they have done it themselves. Next up is our resources. So we give our students access to a plethora of resources. We know that the admissions game is changing all the time on what isn't considered important, what is considered cutting edge, what's being left behind. So we like to prepare our students in every way possible with the resources that we offer them. So our academic mentorships are individualized mentorships where students can conduct, uh, research in an area of their interest. So this fall, we've had courses in using AI towards climate issues. We have a really popular music and neuroscience, fundamentals of cancer biology, some real estate courses, some law courses, we've even in the past, we've had a statistics of basketball course. So really there is a variety of courses for a variety of student interests taught by some of the people you see on your screen here. Next up would be our curriculum. So we have taken objective insights from our former admissions officers. We've picked their brains, gotten all those insider secrets, and use that knowledge to create our systematic and operational curriculum. And we use that to train and maintain our counseling team. So say your student is really interested in UT Austin, but their FAO is from Rice, and maybe their GC is from Stanford, but they really want to get into UT Austin. Well, with our kind of hive mind that we have created, you will have the top knowledge and the intricacies of that admissions office inside our hive mind. So even if your counselors have not worked in that admissions office, you still get access to all of their experience. The last stop we'll go to before we jump right in is our results. So last cycle, our students received 160 Ivy Plus top 10 offers, over 500 top 30 offers, and over 1,400 top 100 offers. So last year was a great year for our students. We are gearing up for another successful year. And with that, I will pass it over so we can dive into the main event.
Thank you so much, Dorothy. So we will be covering applying to schools in Texas, the different data, the school types, and the different applications. So going to the Texas admissions data, just drop this in the chat if you think that this prompt is either true or false. At many top Texas schools, acceptances are on the rise. Just feel free to put that in the chat. Okay, we have some people saying it's false. Anybody else want to answer this one in the chat? Feel free to do so. All right, so it actually is false. So acceptance rates are actually at a record low at institutions across Texas. And getting into some of the nitty-gritty data details here, for example, Rice University, Texas Christian University, Baylor, and Trinity, all of them since 2018 have had their admit rates drop. And then, even at UT Austin, in-state versus out-of-state as well. And, some of these admit rates may be dropping as well because some of these universities have also had an increase in their applications. So we'll take a look at some of that data later as well. So now we're getting into the types of Texas schools and application platforms. So, for example, we typically see small liberal arts schools, medium-sized universities, and the large state schools in Texas. So, small liberal arts, that could be Trinity, medium-sized universities, that's Rice and SMU, and then the large state schools, that's your UT Austin, Texas A&M, and Texas Tech. And all of these schools as well have a different culture, different class sizes, different class offerings, different professors, etc. So, some of these universities are private, some of these are public. For example, Rice, Texas Christian University, Trinity, Baylor, SMU, those are going to be your private universities versus the public universities are UT Austin, Texas A&M, and Texas Tech, which all of these public schools on this list right here are the large state schools. Now, so this is just a little study of Rice versus UT Austin and what, the numbers have been recently and what they're seeking in their applicants. So, as I said, the number of applications are actually on the rise. And that's why, the admit rate is getting lower and lower each year. So, for example, Rice University, that's your more medium-sized school, you have applications around 36,000. But at UT Austin, you have, 50,000 plus applications. So obviously that is, a huge gap as well. And Rice is going to have less students in their undergraduate student body than UT Austin. As well as these schools have different SAT ranges and different, review processes and if there's an in-state applicant preference or not. So some in-state advantages for Texas students are automatic admission. Not every single university will have these different in-state perks, but these are just some perks that some schools may have. So automatic admission, lower tuition, exclusive financial aid, easier residency for tuition, seamless transfers, and strong job connections. So these are just some of the perks, again, that Texas schools will offer. So, for example, if we're looking at UT Austin specifically, as I said, each year the number of applications are increasing. So, for example, in 2024 at UT Austin, there were 73,000, but then in 2025 there was 90,000. So, that's a pretty big jump, right? And your out-of-state applications are also growing as well. So not only do we have the in-state, but the out-of-state growing. And then some policy changes for UT Austin because of the increase in these applications. They have started to tighten up their automatic admission policy. So the auto admit students, it is 75% of the incoming class. Um, for the College of Liberal Arts, that is guaranteed. And then the non-auto admit students, it was 11% admit rate last year. And then the impacted majors are computer science, engineering, and business. Also, I'm going to take a pause here. If anyone has any questions, just feel free to drop them in the Q&A. And then in the 2023 to 2024 cycle, the in-state versus out-of-state acceptance rates were around 41% for in-state and 12% for out-of-state and international. And the admission rate by major also differs, right? Because not every single admission rate will be the same for each major. So, for example, computer science and engineering and business are, one of some of the more competitive majors versus if we look at computer science versus education, that's a bigger margin. And again, not all of these schools of study have the exact same application numbers. All right, so we're going to move on to Rice here. So, with around 32,000-ish applications, there were 2,439 admits. So that's around a 7.5% admit rate. The highest number of applications that Rice has received was this year. So again, number of applications are going up, so therefore the admit rate is going down. So again, yeah, the applications, they're increasing, and Rice also implemented the ED2 round, which had a 6% acceptance rate from 2,513 applications. And ED1 in Questbridge, they admitted 491 students. So, Rice is one of those schools that are growing in popularity. So the more people that know about rice, the more people that are going to apply. And by major, some of the more competitive majors are majors like business, economics, bioengineering, computer science, and biology. So, some of the STEMmy kind of majors for sure are going to be more competitive at Rice. All right, moving on to Texas A&M. They are a little bit less popular than Rice and UT Austin, but Texas A&M is gaining that recognition. So they are, kind of similar to other state-funded universities. And, more and more people are going to apply to them as well. And again, Texas A&M also falls into that category of seeing even more applications year after year after year. And it is now one of the largest universities in the entire country. So, with their student body exceeding 74,000. So that's, quite a large number in comparison, for example, to Rice or Trinity, where they have a smaller student body size. So when weighing which universities you would like to go to, definitely be looking at the student body size, the class size, location, campus culture, all of that stuff. And now they have an annual enrollment cap as well. So the main campus will have a maximum of 15,000 new undergraduates each year. So they also have a waiting list now for the fall 2025 admission. So, as we all said, all of these schools are, becoming more and more competitive, and UT Austin lowered their admission threshold because of demand. And, Rice, as a private school, is highly competitive as well. And for Texas students, definitely take advantage of the in-state public university system. Um, you know, Such as UT Austin, Texas A&M, and all those other schools for sure. And then even if outside the top 10%, students should still apply because, you are an in-state applicant. So that will definitely be, weighed in the application review. And then Rice being private, they will follow different policies. So, for example, being in-state for Rice wouldn't be as advantageous as some of the other schools that weigh that and consider that even more in the application process. So definitely stay open-minded throughout your application journey. And there are definitely people such as your college counselor to help you, your family, maybe even an older sibling, and your team at Ingenious Prep as well. So now we're going to talk about a little bit how applications are processed. So, you will put all that wonderful work into your application and actually submit that before the deadline. And then the admission office will add it to their pile of thousands of applications. This pile is digital. It used to be, on paper, but now it's all digital. And then the applications are most likely going to be separated by region. So each admissions officer will have a certain number of schools they will look at in the region. And then some places it's, that one admission officer is doing those initial reviews of the application and whittling down the pool. And then some places it will be admission officers plural, so in teams of two or more be reading your application at any given time. So again, it really just depends on your school that you're applying to, what their admission policies are. But within each admission office, they will have multiple rounds of reviewing these applications to really make sure that they're not missing anything in the application, to make sure that they are doing you and your application justice as well. And then at some point, the admission officers reading your application, they'll get together as a full committee and pitch your application to a supervisor or someone that is a leader within the office, and they will make those final decisions. So, if your admission officer doesn't want to advocate for you, they don't technically have to. So that's why, your applications, you really want to make sure that you stand out. Definitely reach out to your admission officer, email, the admission office, introduce yourself to your admission officer to really make sure that you are in the back of their mind when, reading the applications from that given region, because not all of the students will be doing that. So when you introduce yourself over email to your admission officer, they will remember you even more. So definitely be doing things like that and reaching out so everyone remembers you. All right, so the different application systems, we have the Common Application, Apply Texas, the Coalition Application, the UC schools have their own application system, and then there's some school-specific applications like MIT and Georgetown. And then Apply Texas, was created through collaborative efforts between Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board and the colleges and universities that want to be represented on that site. So there will be over 130 public and private universities in Texas that use Apply Texas. So for example, notable schools on Apply Texas are UT Austin, Texas A&M, Texas Tech, Baylor, SMU, and Trinity. Rice is not on this list. Schools that will use the Common App, again, Rice, they don't use Apply Texas, they use the Common Application, and also Baylor, SMU, Trinity, and Texas Christian University all, use the Common Application as well. So some key differences between Common App and Apply Texas. Common App has way more university members and it's not, Texas specific. And then Apply Texas, there will be a residency information section as well. Both have the same number of activity slots, but only 5 honor slots on the Common App and 8 honor slots on Applied Texas, as well as 8 volunteering slots and 8 employment slots. Both of them, you will have a future plans section and essays that you will have to write, such as like a personal statement or questions that the school wants you to answer as well. All right, so some strategies for Apply Texas specifically. So these are the things, this is a list of things that Apply Texas will typically look for. So right now we're going to talk about biographical information. So this section right here includes your personal information, address, contact details, demographic, geography, language, citizenship, and family obligations. Now you may be thinking, okay, well, why does this information matter, right? But what they really want from this information is to see, where you are located within, the country or maybe even internationally, because a student from Texas is not going to look the same as a student from New York. So, they want that information because they can do that contextual review to make sure that, based on the factors of, your upbringing, you're going to have different perspectives than someone from California or New York or Iowa, for instance. So that's why this information is important. And then educational background. This is also going to be important, such as college credit hours, high school information, GED qualification, and the list of colleges you've attended. For example, if you are a transfer student. This is also important because not every high school has the same offerings. So maybe, if you are at a more under-resourced school, you're not going to have, as many APs available to you, or maybe the IB program, right? Versus someone who goes to a really high-powered resource school is going to have all of that available to them. So what admission officers are looking for is if you are pushing rigor within your school context. So if your school doesn't even offer APs, they're not going to penalize you for not taking APs because that quite literally won't be an option for you at that school. As well as they want to make sure that you are actually completing the high school requirements. So, for example, if your high school requires physics for you to graduate and you don't have physics for some reason on your transcript, that's going to raise a little bit of a red flag for admission officers. So that is what they look for in the educational background section. The educational information. This is for the school, what semester you plan to enter. So, for example, if you're going to be taking a gap year, you wouldn't be entering, the semester right after you graduated high school, nor if you, for example, have to go on a mission for religious reasons, or if you have citizenship elsewhere in another country and you have to do your military service, that is all things that need to be reflected into the application. Um, and if you want to seek, a teacher certificate, that would be reflected in here as well, and your senior year courses, because depending when you will be taking or when you will be submitting that application, they may not have that full information as of yet, but when you graduate, you will have to submit that transcript at the end of the year. And then you might be wondering why Apply Texas isn't asking for your intended major in this section, because you will list specific schools, at the university you're applying to, and then your majors of interest before you even start the application. So you can change it, but it is important to choose majors and schools that will align with your interests and area of focus. So, for example, if I am really interested in like music or something, the Shepherd School of Music at Rice would be a great option. But I wouldn't be, selecting schools that really don't have much musical offerings or even a major. So that's why that's important. So for future plans, don't choose undecided. Even if you are still kind of undecided, if you're leaning like one way or another way, try to choose something that you could see yourself doing. Um, and Individuals that are interested in pursuing a less popular field are more likely to be accepted, but I will caution you, there is something in the industry called backdooring, which you really don't want to do. For example, I was not a STEM girly at all in high school. I was, interested in the humanities, but for example, if I, want to apply to different schools and all of a sudden I want to become a doctor, right? That's not really going to make sense for the admission officers, based on my academic history. So don't choose a major that you think will be more likely for you to get in. For example, if you're a STEM heavy kid and you're like, oh, well, humanities, that's easy to get into. Admission officers can smell that, and that's going to really raise a red flag for them. As well as make sure that your future plans support your application persona. So your application persona is a thread that will tie together, your entire application. For example, an application persona isn't, I'm a really good student and a good friend, and I volunteer and I play piano and I do all that. That's not an application persona. An application persona is, for example, this student um, wants to become a doctor to improve lives through curing cancer. That's going to be a little bit more specific than, you're a great student and you're really involved, because plenty of students are great students and really involved. And again, your career interests should match your intended or potential major. So, for example, if you want to be pre-law or something, and then, you don't really have much of, that experience, or you want to major in art or something, that wouldn't really make sense. So again, your degree and career interests should match. All right, we have another poll, or I guess a multiple choice question. This one is, at UT Austin, automatic admission is available to students that graduated in what percentile of their high school class? So some people say it's B, some people say it's A. We have another one saying it's A. All right. So the answer is B, 6%. The upcoming fall is the first year in which students need to be in the top 6%. So previously it was the top 7% of students, but now it will be the top six. And then for the testing information, um, you can take the tests such as the ACT, SAT, TOEFL, and IELTS. Um, ACT and SAT, those are the standardized tests. And then the others are like English language proficiency. And then Applied Texas doesn't allow you to self-report scores. So you do have to submit that official testing wherever you're applying. And they also don't ask for or require SAT subject test scores, but you need to check the individual school requirements to know if you should submit them. So for example, some schools are moving away from the test optional. Some now are test suggested, and then some are test required now. So for example, UT Austin is test required, and then A&M is test optional. So always make sure whenever you're applying to make sure that it is you are adhering to their admission policies, whether it be through testing or whatever their requirements are. For example, if they want you to have at least physics or something to graduate, make sure that you're taking that class. So, some takeaways, that college testing requirements, you do need to take that into consideration. For example, someone with a 1,000 combined SAT score is not, you're not really going to be able to apply to somewhere like Rice. So just pay attention to their testing requirements and averages. And then report the scores that are required and that help you. And then the fewer times that you take it to get that strong score, the better. So really don't take it until you are really confident about that. What you don't want to happen is if you keep taking it and then your score goes down each time, if you do take it multiple times, do make sure that your score at least is going up a little bit each time. If you really do want to take it multiple times. But admission officers are going to be looking for that trend of looking at the dates that you took it, and if your score fluctuated and how it fluctuated each time. All right, so the residency information. This section is important because most public universities, such as like the UT schools, they have to admit a certain number of students that are actually from Texas. So if you're a resident, that helps your chances. Some other schools, again, like Rice, that's really not going to help you all that much. Um, and if you are a resident of Texas, you need to download the residency affidavit and submit that to all schools where you apply. And then here's just some residency breakdown for UT Austin and Texas Tech as well. So as you see, a lot of them are indeed from Texas. And then we have our extracurricular, personal, and volunteer activities. So, what is in this section? We have that optional resume, the extracurricular activities, community service or volunteer service, and then the talents, awards, and honors. And you really should not be including that resume in your application if you don't really have anything else to add. As we saw previously, both in the Common App and Applied Texas, you do have 10 activities that you can submit. So if you have a whole laundry list of things that you're doing, great, go ahead and submit that resume. But you really don't want the admission officer to spend more time on the application by looking through that resume if it's really not any different from the uh, activities list. All right, so we do have another multiple choice. How many characters do you get to describe your activity details, honors one, and accomplishments on applied Texas? Do we have anyone in the chat that thinks they know the answer to this question? Okay, that's okay. People are being shy right now. Oh, okay, we say C. Someone said E. Okay, someone else said E. All right, thank you guys. So the answer is actually E because you get just 70. That was a trick question. You have just about one line of writing to introduce your activities. And in that line of writing, you need to impress the admission officers. Um, and highlight your accomplishments. So, you also will need to demonstrate if you have any leadership skills in that one line. So, really, not a whole lot of space to do this. So, that's why some people actually do find the activities list of the application to take more time than, the personal statement or the supplemental essays. I know that might sound wild, but it's because you only get just 70 characters, so it can be really hard to really hit home what exactly you did in that activity in those 70 characters. All right, so some information to include about your extracurriculars, obviously the organization name. Um, for example, if you are doing like a really well-known national competition, you can use the acronym for that. But if it's, for example, a nonprofit that you founded that nobody knows the name of, definitely write the full organization name out. And obviously, you have to describe the activity, the level that it's at, whether it's, your school, district, regional, or national level, your years of participation if you held a position title. So if that maybe you're just a member, or maybe the secretary, or even president or co-founder of something, make sure to include that as well. Whether you had to be elected for the position, hours spent per week, and weeks spent per year. When you are writing your activities list, make sure you are adding these hours up and, making sure that it's actually reflective of your actual time spent. Because, for example, if you add all of your activities up and it's like 30 hours per week, that's going to be a little bit of a question mark to some admission officers because that's almost like a full-time job, right? And you're already going to school for so many hours. So definitely make sure that you're adding up those hours that you spend per week on your activities to make sure that they make sense. So this is just a screenshot of what that would look like on the Apply Texas application. And then some goals for the AL are to demonstrate if you have any leadership, if you have any tangible achievements. So, for example, if you have raised a certain amount of money, absolutely put that on the AL. Or if you've recruited, this many people, try to be as specific as you can and be using, those action words as well. They also want to see if you have sustained involvement and, not, they don't prefer that your activities list is full of what we call one-offs, where maybe you did one thing for a year, or you did another thing for a year, or you did another thing for a year, and they're all just one-year engagements, a laundry list of just one-year engagements. And again, everything in your application needs to support your application persona and tie back, to what you're trying to convey to the admission officers. And again, the clear and organized formatting. So this is just a comparison of the applied Texas activities list and the Common App activities list. So when you input everything, it will automatically make this formatting for you. So, you don't have to go in and make one column and say, okay, now I have to write, my years, and then if it was during the break, and then how many hours per week, weeks per year. And then if you choose to continue, you don't have to go in and format that yourself. These platforms will automatically do that for you. So, the community and volunteer information to include is the place of service, the description of service, the total number of hours, and the dates. So, for example, if you traveled abroad or something to teach, like that's pretty notable, right? You didn't do that in, this country, so that's definitely very important to include. And then, as we said before, you will have 8 awards, talents, and honors in this section as well. And you will have 40 characters, including the spaces, to list the title. And this is just, again, a screenshot of what that would look like on your end. And then, very important if you want to continue this post grad. So, for example, some people they would click that if they're a transfer student and they have done that past 12th grade. Some people, if they plan to continue that in college, they will click that postgraduate, whether it be, continuing the club at the school that they're applying to or continuing researching with a certain professor over the summer, absolutely click that postgraduate tab as well. And again, with these as well, you would get the level of recognition. So definitely try to be impacting, others just beyond, your school as well. So for the employment, internships, and summer activities section, we have the specific role and job title, your employer and hours per week. So, for example, if you think that, oh, admission officers are not going to want to see my job as a receptionist or even an ice cream scooper or server, that's absolutely not true. Because, you are taking this time outside of your school to be doing these activities. So they show that, you're committed to just beyond, activities at your school. So again, even working at McDonald's, right? Some people are like, oh, I don't want to put that on there. But again, that can show that you work hard and you're part of an adult team. And if you do plan on applying for scholarships, you do have to fill that section out. So for the custom questions for the specific school that you're applying to, we'll have different sections that vary because Texas A&M won't have the same requirements as UT Austin, for example. So Texas A&M, they have 10 sections. UT Austin has over 25. A screenshot on the right of your screen will show that how many of these requirements or these prompts say required next to them. So absolutely do not wait until the last minute to fill this section out because, some people think, oh, it's just, a list, I can take care of that later, but it actually takes time to be filling out all aspects of the application. So the best thing to do here is, to create a schedule. And I know this looks like a lot of information right in this list, but if you just look at this list at one time, you're just going to think, oh my gosh, right? This is very overwhelming. But if you cover up most of the list and you just look at the first one, it seems less overwhelming. So what I tell people is if you want to hypothetically eat an elephant, one of the biggest mammals on Earth, you can't sit down in one sitting to eat the elephant. You'd have to sit in multiple sittings to be able to do that and to do it comfortably. So definitely don't wait until the last minute to do that. And then, so the UT Austin short answers, it's a 250 to 300 word limit. And these are just some examples of the questions that will be asked. All right, and then going into the essays, so there will be different admission essays. Maybe if you want a scholarship at the institution or a major specific scholarship, you will have to write an essay for some of them. Some schools, they may have a merit scholarship that you don't even apply for. That's something that the admission officers will keep in mind when just reviewing the applications to see, okay, this is a really great student. We want to kind of tag them for a possible scholarship. So just review the policies within the schools that you are applying to. So another multiple choice question. Approximately how many words are required for Applied Texas essay prompts? Does anyone have okay, someone said E, none of the above. Someone said D, 1,500 words. So the answer is, trick question again, none of the above. The personal essay is 500 to 700 words, which if you compare it to the common outward limit of 650, it's different. Um, So, yeah, it's going to be different than the Common App. So, some strategy here is that some prompts that are required depend entirely on the school. So, some schools may require essay A and B, while some schools may require essay A. And when you are writing these essays, don't feel like you have to completely scrap everything and rewrite a whole new essay for, each school. I mean, you do, but, your academic interest, right, is going to be the same. What drives you to be interested in the work that you're interested in. That's most generally going to be the same, but just supplement that with I'm really passionate about working in this specific lab at this specific school with this specific professor. That is going to be school specific rather than just saying, oh, I'm really passionate about biology or something. So make sure those essays are absolutely school specific. And then just comparing it to the Common App essay prompts, there's 7 of them. Um, and, these are great ways to brainstorm as well. What you need to do in these essays is to show who you are. And taking that even further, show who you are right now. Some students, they write about, something that happened to them while they were very little, and that's great, but make sure that you are not only focused on that throughout the entire essay. Because admission officers, again, they want to know who you are right now. They don't want to be admitting who you were, when you were in grade school. They want to be admitting you as, the almost adult. So definitely show that. And what makes you unique, right? Not everybody is going to have the same perspective about something. Two people can go through the exact same thing and have very different takes on how it changed them, right? Show your personality. If you're witty, you can be cracking jokes in your essays and show how the pieces of your application fit together as well. Show, don't tell. Yeah, that's all going to be important to accomplish in these essays. And some mistakes to avoid is writing your resume twice. Again, with the activities list, you don't want to be including that resume if you have it all on your activities list, nor do you want your essays to just be a list of everything you've done. Again, show, don't tell. If you are trying to do too much, right? If you're trying to show all of these different sides of you in one single essay, that will be a little bit harder to do. Or even exaggerating adversity. selling yourself short, focusing on the middle school achievements or writing about other people. Again, admission officers want to see who you are. And definitely don't sound arrogant or privileged or use cliches or platitudes or describe something without a purpose. Make sure that you're always tying what you're writing about in your essay to the thesis, or use figurative language or passive voice and poor grammar. Those are all things to keep in mind. All right, so we're actually going to go through a case study right now of a student N. This was a real ingenious student that went to a public high school with a 4.0 out of 5.0 weighted GPA. Their class rank, they were in the top 25%, and they were interested in pre-med. And they were applying to UT in state from a public school, but he did not make the top 7% cutoff. So he wanted to be pre-med, which is a really popular major anywhere, but specifically at UT Austin. And the student came from a multicultural background, but really didn't know how to write about that experience. So we helped him by contacting Dr. Sinisa uh, Vucelic. I don't really know how to pronounce that one, but he is a professor, a Mechie professor at Columbia, and student N did a one-on-one research project with him. So that was great, and they were able to have that final research project and also, code his own computer application, which was pretty compelling as well. And this is how the student wrote about their experience onto the common application. And they were interested in biomedical engineering. And, for the Applied Texas prompt, they chose the tell us your story. What unique opportunities or challenges have you experienced throughout your high school career that have shaped you to who you are today? So they chose about moving from the US to Bangladesh and then back to the US again. So that was pretty compelling as well. And then, again, the UT specific essay, they tied their application persona throughout the entire application. And they answered the question of if you could have any career, what would it be and why? And then this was their essay that they wrote about working with distressed children and infants, international, to bring vision care to the underprivileged. So that was also pretty compelling for the student. And then, yeah, the student was accepted to UT Austin. So that was pretty great for student N, very happy for student N. And I do believe Dorothy is going to pick it back up from here.
Yes, I thank you. There was a lot of information in there, everyone, so keep your eyes peeled on your email for this recording tomorrow. Before we get to your questions, just a clearer breakdown of some of our top results. I won't read them all to you. And then if you remember from when we were talking about the admissions process, how you go through that first reader, you make it through, they have to fight for you, and then you go back to committee, where you get pitched to the whole group. But what does that really mean? What happens at that table? Um, we are pulling back the curtain and showing you that live in a webinar on the 23rd. We are completely peeling it back and showing you a real life discussion debate between two students who are vying for essentially the same spot. So we'll show you the real debate that happens, the real conversations, the real arguments, um, and just showing you for the first time, really, what actually happens, in the room where it happens. So if you want to register for that, you can scan that QR code and you will be sent your registration information. And here's a chart of our programs and services, candidacy building, strategizing early to build your profile two-on-one with the help of a former admissions officer and a graduate coach, a plethora of other resources, our academic mentorships, like I mentioned, our leadership and innovation lab, so students will launch a business, organization, or a platform with the help of an entrepreneurship expert, and of course, application counseling. So, building your application from scratch to perfection with the help of a former admissions officer and a graduate coach. Now, technically, the application counseling period has closed for the early cycle. But if you would like help on your applications during the early cycle, there is still technically time. I'm allowed to give you a little window if you are interested. You can hit yes to the poll I'm going to launch in just a second. If you're interested in application counseling or any of our other programs, you can hit yes on this poll. Your consultation will be about a 30-minute call where we will learn all about you, your student, where they want to go to school, what they want to study. Of course, answer any questions about us, but come together and create the best strategy, the best plan we can on how we can get your student into that dream school. And with that said, it is time for some questions. All right. So, any thoughts on the cutoff high school rankings for other states, excuse me, such as UVA or UNC?
With those cutoffs, I mean, again, not only in Texas, but as a whole, the application um, market, right? It's becoming more competitive. So those numbers may fluctuate, just as we've seen from other schools. I mean, what is it specifically about those schools and cutoffs? Because again, some schools they do have that cutoff, and then some schools don't. So you just have to really look at what the data is for each school year by year. And if the schools, again, if they're updating their policy each year to just go on their websites and look at that.
There is also the common data set which schools published. If you Google the school name and then a common data set, you'll most likely get the first result as a PDF, which is the common data set, which is all of the raw data on exactly what the schools are looking for, they consider. Might be a little bit too much information, honestly, but if you have a specific question that you are really interested and want to dig through all of that, it is out there for you if you are interested. Okay, so we have another question about the GPA and how that is calculated. So how could a GPA 4 out of 5, not into the top 7 high school ranking, how is that rank calculated?
So I did not work with student N, so I'm unsure. I did not see their transcript or their school profile. So, based on the school, they could be calculating it differently. Some schools, meaning universities, they may recalculate GPA, some may not. Most do not, because that takes a lot of, data and reworking. So it probably was just their like number ranking that made them mathematically, in the top 25%.
Right. Well, if anyone doesn't have any questions, I will end us with one other question. Oh, we haven't come in, but May, what would you recommend to students, maybe seniors, maybe juniors planning for next year? What would be your one piece of advice, golden nugget of wisdom that you would share with these students?
Absolutely. So, I actually have several. So, if you are, younger, in ninth, 10th, or 11th, make sure that, your academic trajectory makes sense, right? Admission officers, they're absolutely not, um, holding you 100% to what you want to do in life. Because if you're 17, how do you know, right? How do you know what you're supposed to be doing? But if you are really interested in, for example, becoming pre-med, then definitely try to take advantage of all of the offerings and options that you have, around you, or maybe even online. Admission officers, for example, I was talking about if a student they don't have an AP system at their school, but some may, go online to try to find those resources, and admission officers really like to see that. If you are in the process of, really going filling out your application and whatnot, again, really reach out to your admission officer. Again, if you don't know who they are, just email the general overall admission officer and ask, hi, this is my name. This is the school I go to. This is what I'm interested in studying. I would love to introduce myself to my admission officer. And then try to build a relationship with them so they will remember, like, oh, this is the student that reached out to me about this one thing, and I really enjoyed talking to them. And, visit campus if you have the resources. Um, and even, if you have visited campus, take advantage of the online offerings, such as any admission offerings, any school of study offerings they may have. Really, sign up for the mailing list. If you don't want the spam, just create a whole different email and, sign up for all the things there. And you can just, throw away that email address after you've been admitted. Um, but they do, some schools, they, actually block out if you have any contact with them. But some schools, they say they don't track demonstrated interest. Um, but if it's something that they can see, um, you know, some admission officers may weigh that more heavily than others. So definitely try to do anything you can to demonstrate that you are interested in that school.
Okay, so we have a few rapid fire ones I'm going to
Okay.
shoot out before we wrap up. So since UT Austin has an early application deadline, do admissions officers actually review senior year first semester transcripts, or are they only seeing grades through junior year?
So that depends when the application deadline is and at what point in. So, for example, if you go to a school that does like a quarterly grade or a mid-year, like in the semester, like a halfway through the semester grade, they can send that transcript. So it really depends on what your specific school policy is, if they will show us, what grades that you have going on or are even projected to get. But again, no matter where the decisions land, no matter what, at the end of the year, when you do have those final grades, admission officers will be looking at your application again to make sure that you didn't like fail a class or something. So definitely make sure that you are working all the way through senior year to keep the GPA up.
Okay, awesome. And our last question. So I received a college application invitation from an admissions officer. Is it a good idea to send them my resume so they can remember me?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, Devin. Absolutely send them your resume when you are introducing yourself to them over email. So they can say, okay, this is, this student, and they've done all of these different things. I was definitely more inclined to remember students that did the work to reach out to me than students who did not engage at all, and weren't the most flashy within their school either. So definitely, do what you can to be engaging with their admission office in any and all capacity.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time and giving us all this information and answering all of our questions. I know we greatly appreciate it.
No worries. Thank you so much for having me. I hope everyone has a great evening.
Yes, have a wonderful evening, everyone, and hopefully we will see you at a future webinar next Tuesday. We are tackling the UC system. So if you are interested in any California schools, be sure to tune in next week. Have a great night, everyone.